So, as someone who was pretty as someone who's pretty vehemently anti Bradley Beal trade when it happened, it's really difficult for me to sit here today and say that the Phoenix Suns haven't had an amazing offseason. So, within the first, I think, week and a half of free agency, the Phoenix Suns have managed to acquire, I think, five new players and their second round rookie without a mid-level exception. And they got Eric Gordon in that process. They got Yuta the Shooter in that process. They got two backup centers who are both okay. And they got Keita Bates-Diop. Now, none of these players are phenomenal. Eric Gordon's a pretty reliable three-point shooter. His health is always a bit of an issue, and he's sometimes not the most efficient. But he always averages double digits. And he's a veteran, and he's a bucket. He's always been a bucket. Yuta the Shooter is like, I think he had a month last year where he shot like 60% from the corners. It was crazy. He's one of the best spot-up shooters in the league in limited minutes. Keita Bates-Diop is apparently a really good cutter, which is something this team's going to desperately need when you have three on-ball creators. I don't really know about their rookie, but the two backup centers are obviously nice to have when you lose Jock Lawndale, who wasn't that good in the first place. So the Phoenix Suns have managed to kind of I think they kind of have a squad. I wasn't sure about the depth that this team was going to be able to build, not even having a mid-level exception. Basically, there was almost no avenues for them to even acquire, because to me the bar for this Suns team is acquiring productive playoff rotation players. And if you watch the Nuggets this year, they only ran like a 7 or 8 man playoff rotation. You only need 8 good NBA players. But to do that, you need like mid-level exception level players. Like even guys like Reggie Jackson or DeAndre Jordan or Thomas Bryant, who the Nuggets, who the Suns are going to have to contend with now, signed for less than the mid-level exception or around it. I don't really know for sure the details of their contracts. Like those guys didn't even crack the rotation. So I wasn't really sure how Phoenix was going to build a squad without even having that much cap flexibility, but they've kind of managed to do it with these small, like, minimum level contracts. And I think getting Eric Gordon at this value is crazy, and this isn't even accounting for the fact, and the reason I'm making this video, they can still get Bol, and they're rumored to get him within the next few days of free agency, which would be insane, because if they can add Bol to this team, then they're going to be balling, because that would be probably their second best, if not their best, acquisition of the offseason. So the Phoenix Suns have sort of built themselves a pretty good supporting cast, a pretty solid supporting cast. It's definitely still not up to snuff with a team like the Clippers or even the Lakers in terms of depth. But they've kind of built themselves a bit of depth here around their insane core. And I still have a lot of doubts about that core. I don't think 3 on-ball shot creators. Okay, hang on, guys. Anyway, oh God, where was I? So yeah, even though I think they don't have the depth that like a lot of the other Western Conference contenders have built, and I don't think this core is going to be successful, I still think that the moves that the Suns made during the offseason are extremely impressive. But I guess let's talk about my opinion and my thoughts on this core now that they're kind of set in stone on their pieces, because I don't think DeAndre Ayton's getting traded at this juncture in free agency, and it doesn't look like they'll be able to acquire a lot more players. I think Bol will basically max out their cap flexibility, even though they've kind of been stretching it. I think this team, they're going to be a good regular season team. There's no doubt about that. You have 3 of the 15 best scorers in the NBA, arguably. Bradley Beal averaged like 35 3 years ago. Kevin Durant's arguably the greatest scorer of all time, and Devin Booker's a bucket as well. Like, you're going to have 3 of the best shot creators in the league. This team's going to win a lot of regular season games. They're probably going to get home court advantage in the playoffs. But my problem with this team is they don't have a lot of defense. None of these guys I don't think there's a single elite defender on this team, and I'm pretty sure, like, unless you have a scheme that kind of lends itself to maximizing your defenders, like guys with like length or guys who in theory can switch, or like what the Nuggets did with Michael Porter Jr., who's usually not a plus defender. They kind of turned him into a roamer where he would kind of help and block shots on the weak side. He would help from the weak side and block shots. Like, you can make a scheme with limited defensive personnel work, but you still need one or two like good defensive players. And I don't even know, or like defensive leaders, like players who can kind of galvanize your defense. That's kind of like what the Celtics have in Marcus Smart. The difference is, well, Marcus Smart's not on the Celtics anymore, and the Celtics had like actual like elite switchable defenders. But this Suns team doesn't really have a guy who can kind of like kind of rally the troops. On the defensive end, I have no doubts that their offense is going to be good. There might be a lot of situations, especially during the playoffs, when teams are like explicitly scheming for these three guys, when it'll be like a too many cooks in the kitchen kind of situation. And I don't know if you remember that one clip from this year where Luka and Kyrie kind of got stuck at the top of the key and like at the end of the game kind of just passing back and forth trying to make something happen. I feel like there's going to be a lot of situations like that with this team. They have a full season to work it out, and this core is basically locked in for the next 2-3 seasons. I'm not really sure how long all their contracts run. But at least for this year, I think there's going to be a lot of times where these three kind of end up being redundant, and I think staggering their minutes is going to be really important to the success of this team. And also Devin Booker's playmaking taking a leap, and then Bradley Beal's three-point shot coming back is going to be a big deal as well, because really these three all like to create in the mid-range, which in small doses is good, but when you have like three guys who don't shoot even, like, I don't even think Bradley Beal's a league average three-point shooter anymore, or he is like exactly at league average, and then Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who are probably overrated three-point shooters, it's a little bit concerning, though they did address this in the offseason, obviously, with Yuta Watanabe and Eric Gordon. But I still don't feel great about this Suns team. They make me a little bit. They am really worried about their future, just because I just don't see a world where this team, without the cohesion and without the because this team is assembled like you would assemble a 2K team, where you basically trade all your draft capital, because like basically Matt Ishbia had like bought the team and was like, oh my god, we can get Kevin Durant. We can get Bradley Beal? Like, yeah, obviously those moves sound great. And, but, if you can't see past your nose, then you're not going to realize that there might be consequences to picking up a player with a no trade clause who's on a massive super duper max contract and a 35-year-old who's always hurt. The upside of this team, the ceiling of this team, if this all manages to work out and they have like an average defense and like an insane offense with elite shooting and DeAndre Ayton in the pick and roll, and they like all these guys become like you might be able to build a good. Oh, they also got Jordan Goodwin. I forgot about that. Okay, so they actually have a point guard who can pass. So you can, but I don't know if he's a primary playmaker. So they might have to run basically 5 secondary playmakers. Because if you look at like most contending teams throughout the years, I actually just watched an NBA Storyteller video which kind of touched on this idea. Most finals level teams have like one elite playmaker, one primary playmaker, and then one guy who averages like 3 to 5 assists. And that basically that tandem basically makes up for like probably half the playmaking of your roster, or maybe like 40% of it. And I don't even know if the Suns can get to that bar because they don't have that first guy, but they have a lot of guys who can kind of pass, because Bradley Beal and Devin Booker have always been second options. Well, I guess Devin Booker hasn't, but he's always been like a 6-assist guy. And then Jordan Goodwin's apparently a pretty good passer. So, yeah, I think the Suns might have a squad.